大家好，我是菲菲老师。Today, let's start with lesson 14. The title of this lesson is 我看了一个电影。我看了一个电影。I watched a movie. Okay, first of all, let's go through the main objectives of this lesson. There are 3 language points of this lesson. First one, the aspect particle le. So we've learned the first meaning of le, right? Today we're going to see the second meaning. And then the adverb do. Probably you've seen this already in the previous texts or example sentences, but today let's dive in the details of what does this actually mean. And then last one, separable words. Okay, let's dive in. 你们上火车后看见王老师了吗？没看见。中午车开后，有些人在看书，有些人睡觉了。你呢？我看了一个电影。Okay, I have 2 questions for you as usual. First one, 陈鹏鹏，王老师 A 正在看 B 没看见 C 看见了。Second one, 陈鹏鹏在火车上 A 读书 B 找王老师 C 看了一个电影。Okay, let's see the text again and you can make your choices. 你们上火车后看见王老师了吗？没看见。中午车开后，有些人在看书，有些人睡觉了。你呢？我看了一个电影。Okay, first one, 陈鹏鹏没看见。Right here, 没看见 original sentence. So we choose B, 没看见。Right, next one, 陈鹏鹏在火车上。So what is he doing on the train? 我看了一个电影。The title of this lesson, right? 我看了一个电影。So we choose C, original sentence. 看了一个电影。Okay, very good. B and C. Next, let's go through the new words. You can read after me. 上，上，火车，火车，中午，中午，开，开，有些，有些，有的，有的，了，了。Okay, first one, 火车。火车, it means train, train. So before we see 车, when 车 stands alone, we said it means what? 车. Right, it's car, right? 车, car. Okay, so actually, if we want to say the full name of car, it should be 汽车. 汽车. But for simplicity, because the car is the vehicle that we see the most in daily life, so for simplicity, if you just say 车, then most of the time you mean a car, right? A car. So you can add other words in front of 车 to make it other vehicles. For example, 火车, 火车, it becomes train. So for example, 坐火车, right? Take a train. 坐, the literal meaning of 坐 means to sit, right? To sit. So sit in a train, you are taking the train. So 坐 is the verb we use in Chinese to mean take a train. Okay, next one, 火车, right? 火车, 开火车, the verb to mean drive a train is 开, right? So if we delete the 火 in between, what does it mean? 开车, 开车. Then it's just drive a car, right? Because we say when 车 stands alone, it means a car. Okay, for example sentences, 我们坐火车去北京吧。去 to go, right? So let's take a train to go to Beijing, right? Okay, next one, 你们的车，你们的火车几点开？几点 What is 几点 we learned this in the previous lesson, right? 几点 What time? What time? 开 So what time your train So even if it means drive here, but actually when we translate it in the meaning, it actually means what time your train leaves, right? Leaves. Okay, 火车. Next one, 上. So before we learned 上, we say that it means the above or up, right? All of these similar meanings, 上. So here we can use 上 as a verb. It means go up or board, right? We can have it before a vehicle, a transportation, and then it means that you are boarding. For example, 上车, 上车, to go up a car, to like get inside a car. And then 上飞机, board a flight, 飞机 flight, 上飞机 board a flight. 上火车, right? You're going up the train, right? You're boarding the train. So, for example, 我们什么时候上飞机? What is 什么时候? It means what time, right? When. So, when do we board the flight? 上车后我睡了一觉. After I get on the car, I fell asleep. Right? Okay, 上. Next one, 中午, noon. So, let's review together some other words that can mean different time of the day. Let's start with morning. How do we say morning? 早上, 早上, morning. And then it's this time between morning and noon. This is quite unique in Chinese. So in English, we have morning, and after morning, it's going to be noon, right? But in Chinese, we have 上午. So normally this time is between probably 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. So anytime after you have breakfast, that is not no more like a literal morning. And then, but you're not reaching noon yet. So this time we call it 上午 in Chinese. After 上午 is the word that we're learning right now, 中午. And then after 中午, we have afternoon, right? Afternoon. It's 下午, afternoon. So actually these three words are quite straightforward. The second hanzi is 午. If you have 午, like standing alone, it means noon. So you have the upper noon, you have the central or middle noon, which is noon, like literally noon, and then you have 下午, so afternoon, right? So these three words. And after that, we have evening and night. So in English, you have a difference between these two, right? Evening and night. But in Chinese, normally we just use this one word, 晚上. So it could mean evening and night at the same time, right? So 早上, 中午, 早上, 上午, 中午, 下午, and then 晚上. So 5 words to describe different days, different time of the day. Okay, good. For example, 今天中午真热. 热, remember, 热. It means hot, right? So the noon of today is very hot. 真热 is very hot. And then 我们中午去北京饭店吃饭吧。我们中午去北京饭店吃饭吧。Let's go to 北京饭店 to have a meal at noon. Right? At noon. Okay. Next word. 开. So earlier we saw it already, right? To drive or to depart. When you are saying a car, 开车, it means that you are driving the car. You're like someone, maybe yourself or someone is driving the car. But when you use it to describe trains or like planes, bigger transportations, so you don't actually mean that someone is driving the car, but most of the time you mean that this vehicle is departing or leaving, because even if like in the meaning, actually it's the same, right? But you cannot be like you yourself literally driving the train, right? So it means to depart or to leave. For example, 火车开了. 火车开了. Le here, change of status, right? 火车开了. So before the train was not moving, and now it's departing, it's leaving, so you can say 火车开了. Right? 看, see? 火车开了. The train is leaving. The train is departing. Right? Okay, next one. 车什么时候开? When does the car or the vehicle leave? Right? 开. Okay, next one. 有的. So here, you can have a fixed pair, which is 有的, and then you can add a sentence, comma, 有的, and again, you can add a sentence. What does it mean? Let's see it in an example sentence. 有的人喜欢吃包子，有的人喜欢吃面条。So if we translate this sentence, some people, 有的人 some people like to eat 包子，有的人喜欢吃面条。Some people like to eat 面条。Right? So it's like some something something, and then some something something. Right? For example, 有的小朋友在玩。Some kids, right? Some children are playing. Some are reading a book. Right? Also, you can replace 小朋友 here with also objects, right? The sentence here we have are all people, but you can of course change it into objects. For example, 有的苹果好吃，有的苹果不好吃。Some apples are delicious, some are not. Right? Okay. And then 这些书有的还是新书呢？这些书 these books, some of them are still new. Right? 有的 some. Okay, so similar to some to 有的, we have another one that is 有些 So in the meaning, that actually these two are quite similar. 有些学生在上课. Some students are having a class. 有些在外面玩. Some are playing outside. Right? So these two are the same. 有些人不喜欢看书. Some people doesn't like to read a book. 喜欢看电影. They like to watch a movie. Right? 有些. Okay, so we said that these two are the same. Then what is the difference? Are these two interchangeable? The answer is when they mean some things, some people, these two are the same. They are interchangeable and the meaning is the same. But you have to pay attention. So before, when we were learning 有点 right? 有点 or 有点 both right? Or 一点 right? We said, what's the difference between these two? Do you still remember? 有点 and 一点 So we say 一点 we use it to describe the amount, right? For example, 一点水 right? A little bit of water, 一点水 But for 有点 you can add a adjective to mean the extent of like this adjective, which is a little bit. So, for example, 我有点 you can say 热, right? 我有点热 I'm a bit hot, right? I feel a bit hot. So the extent of how much you feel hot. So 有点 Then here 有点 can be changed to 有些 meaning is the same. 我有些热 I'm a bit hot. 我有些热 So here 有些 it could mean some, but it could also mean a bit. A bit. But the important thing is this 有些 this a bit cannot be changed with 有的 So 有的 it has only the meaning of some. You cannot say 我有的热 And this is not a correct sentence. You can only say 我有些热 or 我有点热 Did you get the difference? Okay, very good. Next one, the first language point of this lesson. Let's see the second meaning of 了, the aspect particle 了. The definition is this structure indicates that an action has been occurred or been completed. What does it mean? Let's see with an example. 我看了一个电影。我看了一个电影 which is our title of the lesson, right? 我看了一个电影 So here, when you have 了 after a verb, it means that this action has been completed, or it has occurred. So 我看了一个电影 The action of watching a movie is completed. It's done. 我看了一个电影 right? I have watched a movie. This action of watching a movie is done. And then 我买了一个新电脑 How do we translate this one? 我买了一个新电脑 I bought a new computer, right? I have bought a new computer. The action of buying things, 买 buy, is completed, right? Okay, so what if we want to say the negativity form? This structure is used to negate. So 没 plus 动词. So you want to say, I didn't go to the supermarket to buy something. 我昨天没去商店买东西. I didn't go. Right? This is the negative form for you didn't do something. The action is not completed, has not occurred. For example, 我没看电影. 我没看电影. I didn't see a movie. 我没买新电脑. I didn't buy the new computer. 没. Okay, so after seeing the new definition, the new meaning of 了, let's review a bit. What is the difference between these two? Before, the first meaning we said it means change of status, right? Do you still remember change of status? Can you give me a example sentence? So we can say 下雨了, right? The one that we saw before, 下雨了. Before it was not raining, but now it's raining. So the change of status, the status of raining has changed. Okay, and then so let's see the difference in two different sentences. Let me give you two different sentences. 我吃饭了 and 我吃了饭. So these two, can you try to translate them? And can you tell which one means change of status and which one means the action has been completed? Okay, so let's see. 我吃饭了. Here, it's actually the change of status. 我吃饭了. So it means before I was not eating, but now I'm going to change this status. I'm going to change from not eating to eating. So normally when you say this sentence, 我吃饭了, normally you are, like the context, the scenario is normally you are saying to other people, I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat. 我吃饭了. I'm going to eat. And what about 我吃了饭? So of course this is the action has been completed, right? 我吃了饭. So it means I have eaten. I have done the action of eating my meal. So occurred or has been completed. I have eaten. 我吃了饭. Because here you put this 了 right after the verb, right? So normally if you put 了 right after the verb, it means I have done something. The action has been completed. Let's see one more. You can say 我去了中国 and 我去中国了. Yes, can you again differentiate these two? Which one is change of status? Which one is action has been completed? Okay, let's see. 我去了中国. Right here, 我去了中国. The 了 is right after the verb 去, right? So 我去了中国. I went to China. Right? I went to China. 我去了中国. The action of going to China is completed. 我去了中国. Then 我去中国了. 我去中国了. I will go to China. Right? It has this meaning implied. 我去中国了, change of status. Before, I was not going to China, but now I'm going to change the status and I'm going to China. Right? Also, very similar if you change 中国 to 学校. This one is more natural actually than 去中国 because you could be like telling other people I'm going to school, but instead maybe you're not gonna tell people like say like indicating or telling them your next schedule, but your next schedule is such a big thing that you have to travel really far to another country, right? So normally 我去了学校, a more natural sentence. So 我去了学校, I went to school. Right, this thing happened before. And then 我去学校了, I will go to China. I will go to school. Right, okay, so that's the difference between first and second meaning of 了, right? How do we differentiate this? Normally, right after verb, or Chinese is a language highly dependent on context, right? So you can see this based on the context. Okay, good. Next one, separable words. Let's see the definition together. It's quite long. In this lesson, words such as 上课,下课,上班,下班,说话,读书,睡觉,看病, and 生病 belong to a special type of verbal structure. These words can be either combined or separated. When combined, they function as single words. When elements are inserted between their components, they become phrases. Therefore, they are referred to as separable words. When separable words are split, the types of elements that can be inserted are limited. Okay, really long definition. So let's see, what does it actually mean? So in Chinese, there are actually basically I would say 3 type of verbs if we divide it based on if it's separable or not. First one, of course, separable words. Second one, inseparable words. And third one, verbs that has only one hanzi. So when we're talking about separable or inseparable, of course, they are multiple hanzi so that we can separate them, right? But if there's only one hanzi, of course, it's again inseparable. So let's see an example right here. 睡觉,上课,下班,生病,说话. So can you tell what's in common between these 5 verbs? What is in common? Maybe a bit difficult, but can you try to find out? So the thing in common is actually these words are actually all verb plus object. The structure is all like this. If we see inside these verbs, for example, 睡觉, here 睡 is actually the verb, and then 觉, if we separate it, 觉 can stand alone and it means sleep, the noun sleep. So it is the object here. And then 上课, 上 is the actual verb here. 课 means class. So the whole verb actually means taking class. We see it together as a word, but again, it's separable. You can see it as 上 and then 课. 课 himself can be an object, can be a noun. And then 下班, right? 下班, same logic. 下 is the real verb here. And then 班 is the object. It can stand alone. It means work or job. And then 生病, same. 生 is the real verb here. 病, sickness, illness is the object. And then 说话, 说话, 说 is the real verb here. It means to speak, to talk. And then 话, it means speech. Okay, so that is what separable words mean. And you can insert elements, components between these two. For example, 睡了觉, 睡了觉. 睡了觉 just learned, right? You put 了 right after a verb, where 睡 is the real verb in this one. So 睡了觉, I have slept. Right? The action of sleeping has been done. Okay, 睡了一觉. Here we add 一. So I take, so it feels like I take a nap, right? 一觉, I take a nap. 上了课, I have taken the class. And then 上中文课, you can add not just 了, you can add also, for example, 中文 to describe what classes you're taking. I'm taking Chinese class, right? 上中文课, right? 下了班, I have got off work. 生了病, I got sick. 生了大病, right? 大, so it means big, right? 大病, when we say 大病, when we use 大 to describe sickness, it means that I'm sick heavily. 生了大病。说了话, I have said. 说了很多话, I have said a lot, right? And separable verbs. And then what about inseparable verbs? Now we're seeing all of these are separable. What about inseparable verbs? For example, we can use 学习, 学习 is inseparable because 习 standing alone in modern Chinese, it doesn't have a meaning that can stand alone. So 习 itself, it doesn't mean study or learning anymore. You have to use it together with 学, so that's why it's inseparable. 学习. Also other verbs, for example, 喜欢, 喜欢, it means to like, right? If we separate it, 欢, it doesn't stand alone to be mean any object in modern Chinese, so it has to combine with 喜欢, right? So 喜欢 is one word. Also 觉得 I think 觉得 right? 我觉得 I think 觉得 also inseparable because the itself it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have like a very like a solid object noun meaning, right? So it has to combine with 觉得 I think. You cannot say 我觉了的. It's not correct. Right? It's not correct. So how do we differentiate? How do we know which words are separable, which are not? First of all, if you learn, so this is not something that you need to really memorize it, right? This is not necessary for you to do this. I would say if you learn more words, if you have a habit already, you will naturally differentiate. You will naturally know which words are separable, which are not. Also, if you really want to differentiate them, I would say you can try to separate them, and then you see if the second hanzi has a meaning on itself or not. For example, you separate 觉得, and it doesn't mean anything, so you will know this is inseparable, right? Okay, so these are the 2 language points of text 1, and we will continue lesson 14 in the next video. I'll see you. 再见.